First of all, I would like to thank the committee who invited me in this great event. Please allow me to share my screen. Okay, before I go to my presentation, I will introduce you to my country. Indonesia lies between Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean, and it is a part of Southeast Asia region. We have 250 million population. 1/3 of them are children and adolescents. We have more than 1,000 islands, but we have 5 major islands in Indonesia, and Jakarta is our capital city. This is my institution, Dr. Cipto Mangunkusumo Hospital, as top referral in Indonesia, and Universitas Indonesia as the oldest medical school in our country. I started with global situation. We have 149 million children suffer from stunting and 45 million with wasting, and around 39 million categorized as overweight and obese. Actually, WHO already set the target to reduce the stunting by 40% in 2025 and reduce the prevalence of wasting less than 5%, and then remain still of prevalent overweight. How about the progress? We have a great decreasing of our stunting prevalence, but still remain in terms of wasting and slightly increasing in terms of obesity and overweight. How about Indonesia? We do have the same problem. Underweight and stunted still have a higher prevalence compared to the wasted and overweight. We know that WHO defines stunting as children below -2 standard deviation caused by poor nutrition and or repeated infection and inadequate psychosocial stimulation. Stunting have long-term and short-term consequences in terms of morbidity, mortality, developmental index, as well as work capacity, performance, and economic later on in adult. Experts studied about relation of malnutrition and developmental because they want to know whether the malnutrition will affect the cognition and learning ability. Kang et al. Reveal a negative association between stunting and underweight children with the cognition development, but there is no association in terms of social emotional domain in 3 growth indicator. Kang conclude that across Southeast Asia population, stunted children were less likely to be on track in terms of learning and cognition. Gunardi et al. Try to find the prevalence of developmental delay in our population Indonesia, especially under 3 years old children. It found only 10%, but have high correlated with the lower maternal education and lower family income, as well as underweight and stunted and microcephalic children. In India, Khandelwal tried to find the relation between severe acute malnutrition, which is the uncomplicated one, with the developmental index. There are 70% suffer from motor delay and language delay, and 63% have impaired in cognitive domain. In reality, we don't have any habit to use growth chart, WHO growth chart, or national growth chart, or software program to detect the normal or abnormal growth. If we do the growth chart, then we don't use the formal algorithm to detect abnormal growth. Gupta et al. Tried to study about the useful of training the hospital staff in terms of frequency and quality of anthropometric measurement. The result is there is no improvement pre and post intervention in terms of quality of height measurement as well as the frequency. And staff reported that it is time consuming and make a burden to their daily activity. If we take a look to the multi-center growth reference study, we can see that most of the children already have weight faltering before 1 year, and it will follow with the length deceleration. So it is very, very important to monitor the child from beginning. And if we digging more into the WHO data, you can see that the first 6 months, the weight faltering already happened. So the younger we can manage the weight faltering, probably stunting will be prevented. What's the definition of faltering? It is 2 consecutive increments below specific threshold. Usually we use weight faltering because it is easier. Brook and Hill in 1988 set below 25 percentile of 2 consecutive measurement will detect only about 6% of growth faltering. Later on, Cole and Rose and Son set 5th percentile as the cutoff, and they only find 2% of growth faltering. The most recent, Oyango, using WHO velocity standard, set the below 15 percentile of 2 consecutive 1 month will predict 30% of growth faltering at 1 year and 24% at 2 years. So it is easy way to prevent stunting with the monitor regularly weight, and length. The authors remind us that growth velocity should be interpreted causally and should be along with the other growth indicator, because we should manage the child comprehensively, not only by looking growth velocity per se. This is a table for weight increment, and this one is length increment. WHO provides 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months apart. And how should we do in terms of prevention growth faltering? We should endorse and empower community to monitor their child by plotting the curve in their health passport or in software, growth monitoring software, so they can know whether their child growing normally or not. If there is a skewness, then they should go to the primary health care to confirm and to check whether there is a clinical impairment or developmental delay or social environment that will worsen the child condition. Yeah, we should calculate weight and length increment and also check for the red flag. What is the red flag? Is there any structural abnormality, neurological impairment, or any infection that worsen the condition? Also, check for the feeding practice. The most common problem or etiology of faltering growth is inappropriate feeding practice. So counseling and educate the mother and family how to give appropriate feeding practice is the easiest way to manage the faltering growth if there is no etiology, anatomical, psychological, and other infection. If in the primary healthcare center we cannot manage, then you should refer. In secondary and tertiary referral hospital, probably we should check with laboratorium investigation. You can see in this list, probably we should check for anemia, iron deficiency, or any pancytopenia for looking to malignancy, leukemia, any urinary tract infection or thyroid. And also remember about tuberculosis. In our population, tuberculosis is higher than other countries. So it is important to know whether what kind of common infection in our population. We have very, very low of celiac and cystic fibrosis cases. So it depends on the clinical manifestation and also the condition of the child. After we check it, then we should give appropriate treatment and also give some counseling regarding the diet and nutrition program. we should refer back to primary or community so that they can know whether they can maintain all the program, and then try to learn whether this program is okay for their children or not. As a take-home message of my presentation, I would like to say that stunting is a huge problem in most developing country, but it is preventable. And weight faltering and length deceleration are early signs for stunting. And we can know weight faltering and length deceleration by monitoring the growth, and also it should be done regularly. Thank you very much.